Hello, hello, and welcome to episode number 19 of Real&Raw Conversations with Shalina. So tonight we are talking about grief, and it's something that is close to my heart, something that I am currently going through, which is grief. And I wanted to talk about it, to talk about what grief is, how you can heal, the process of grief, which is different for everybody, and the types of grief. So we're going to be talking about that tonight. If you or somebody you know is going through grief, this might be a beneficial episode for them. But before we begin, of course, an acknowledgement of country. I acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, for they hold the memories, the traditions, the culture, the hopes and dreams of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and elders, past, present and emerging. For it is their land on which I work, live, love and conduct business. I am committed to and will continue to celebrate, honour and respect Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people's stories, culture, traditions, as well as their unique cultural and spiritual relationships to country. Sovereignty has never been ceded. It always was and forever will be Aboriginal land. So tonight I have with me transformation coach Kara Sandhu, and we're going to be discussing grief. So let me get her onto the screen. Hello. How are you?
Hello. Hi.
Hello. It's lovely to have you back on again to discuss such a heavy topic. I would say it is quite a heavy topic. Before we begin, if there are some newbies who are watching Real&Raw Conversations with Shalina tonight, please introduce yourself. Who are you? What do you do? Take it away.
Sure. Thanks, darling, for having me here on this topic. Especially, I just want to say hi, everyone. I do want to express how difficult it is right now. We are in lockdown. Victoria is in lockdown. New South Wales is in lockdown. There is COVID deaths happening all over the world, and the state of affairs of the world right now. I'm just really, really sorry about everything what's going on, and I'm sorry for you, Shalina, as well, that you are going through this excruciating pain and loss during these terrible times. And I'm just expressing my compassion and support to anyone who's grieving a loss. And just want to say thank you for having me here so I can help you navigate through this process somehow and be able to give you some comfort and some support if I can. Now, you must be wondering, who is this person who's talking on such a heavy topic, like we just said, grief, and who am I even to talk about it? So I'm Kara, a certified transformation and life coach, a therapist, hypnotherapist, a healer, and a corporate trainer. So I basically help individuals to get unstuck, overcome stress, trauma, unfulfillment, so they can live a balanced life full of joy and passion and energy. So I just basically help people get out of their mind's prison, really, and take them on a journey to discover themselves, evolve their mindset, and help accomplish their goals.
Yeah.
So here we are.
And I think having you on the show to talk about this topic, I couldn't have had anybody better to talk about this too, because you know what it's like. You've helped people who have gone through grief. You've talked about it before, and at the same time, I feel like this would be, in a way, healing, maybe even for myself and for everybody else who is watching and going through grief. This one is for you and me and everybody else who's going through it. So let's begin with, I guess, the main question, the first question. What is grief defined as? What would you define grief to be?
See, grief is so different, right?
Yeah.
It's different for you. It's different for everyone else. It's a natural response to a loss.
Yeah.
So I'm talking about a loss of a loved one right now, but it's a natural response of a loss. It's that emotional suffering that you feel when something or someone you love is taken away from you. So often the pain can feel like a loss, and it can feel very, very overwhelming. You may experience all kind of difficult emotions, unexpected emotions, from shock to disbelief to anger to guilt to profound sadness. The pain of grief can also disrupt your physical health sometimes, making it difficult for you to sleep, eat, drink, or just having a normal life, really. And these are all normal reactions to loss. And the most significant, the loss, the more intense your grief would be. So coping with the loss of someone or something you've lost is probably life's biggest challenges. And we may sometimes sell it short by saying that your grieving period is over, or the grief should have been only for a month or 4 weeks or 6 weeks. When we can't put a number to it, we just really dehumanize this process sometimes, I feel.
Yeah, you're right. And grief is not just a loss of a loved one. You know, grief is going through some sort of trauma or sudden unemployment or a relationship breakdown or a divorce, or, you know, moving to a new place, an end of a friendship. There are so many different types of grief that people go through, but I guess the most prominent type of grief obviously is the loss of a loved one, somebody's presence, somebody who was always there, and suddenly they're not there, and it leaves you with a lot of confusion and a variety of emotions, as well as I've come to learn in the last couple of weeks, to be honest. Still going through the motions, but that's how it is. And as you said, no time limit. I think the biggest thing here, no time limit at all. So what would you say are the emotional or physical effects of grief that people who are grieving sort of go through?
Yeah, like you just mentioned, that grief is not about just losing a loved one. I just want to give an example. Right now, the whole world is grieving, I feel, because of COVID. The whole world's been grieving from past 1 year since COVID hit us. It's an unimaginable scenario where nobody knew what's happening and nobody knows what is happening. So that is a grief. Like, we are going through a longer process of grieving of not being able to go out, grief of not being able to see our loved ones, grief of not being able to travel to see our families, grief of not being able to have the functions or the arrangements we'd like to have, and do things, or losing the businesses, finances, all of it. So that's a perfect way to also follow these things can happen. That's why mental health is shot up in this time as well, because people are literally grieving this loss at the same time. So just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now for symptoms for grief, it's crazy. The most amount of symptoms does come for grief, right? So this loss affects people in different ways. I just want to explain the process a little bit before I go into the symptoms, just very, very quickly. That grief is a very highly individual experience. There is absolutely no right or wrong ways to grieve. So how you grieve depends on many factors, including your own personality, your coping style, your life experiences, your faith, how significant the loss was to you. And grieving process takes time. Healing happens gradually, like I just mentioned, but it can't be forced or hurried. And there's no normal timetable for grieving. Some people start to feel better in weeks. Some people start to feel better in months. And for others, the grieving process is measured in years sometimes. It just depends upon their own personal experience and how they take that grief. Whatever your grief experience is, it's important to be patient and allow yourself for this process to naturally unfold. And from a deeper perspective, it's not just the loss of a person or a thing. If you really look at it, it's also about the part of you that has also been lost in this process. You know, the part of you that was connected to this person, a part of you that was connected to this situation. And so you also grieve that part of you which is no longer there, because that part was only present with this person or present with this situation. So we've got to be really patient with ourselves around that. And you can always feel that now that I'm at loss and I've lost myself or that part, but that will come back because that part is ready for transformation now. That part is ready for renewal. That part which you think you've lost, but it takes some time to get there. And I really want to stress this on this live here, because there is really no timetable. There is no time dedicated for grief. Everyone does it in their own way, and everyone is unique in their own ways. So,
and you, sorry, I was just going to say, and you can't compare yourself to other people as well. Like, sometimes you might know that, oh, this person seems so happy now, and it's only and a month later they're happy, but you're still 2 months into your grief and you're still feeling down. And it's not a competition, because your relationship to a person is different to another person's relationship. So there's no competition or comparison about pain and grief, because, as you said, we all go through it so differently. Like, we mourn for people differently.
Yeah, absolutely, we do, because we are unique, right? So every experience, our life experience, can't be compared 100% to somebody else. We are 100% unique, and we grieve accordingly. How we are as our personality types and what we've gone through. There's so many factors which is dependent upon how we would grieve, right? And you're right, we do comparisons. I've heard people saying that, oh, this person recovered in a month and this person is still grieving. What's wrong with you? Why are you still grieving? Why haven't you forgotten this? Why aren't you moving on? So I would really say, please be considerate around people for this. And if your friends or families or anyone going through it, or if you yourself is going through it, like, don't criticize yourself that you haven't gotten over something and another person has.
Yeah.
That would be probably a terrible thing you'd do to yourself. So in terms of symptoms, now we all know, we've just said that loss affects people in different ways, right? Many of us experience grief in some symptoms, and some other people will experience in different systems and different varieties and symptoms and everything. But just remember that almost anything you experience in the early stages of grief is normal, including feeling like you're going crazy, feeling like you're in a bad dream, questioning your beliefs, questioning your identity, questioning your purpose on this planet. All of this is normal. All of this is normal.
Fear of, I remember I was telling my friends, a few weeks ago when my grandmother passed, and I'd never felt such an extreme pain before. And I remember messaging my friends being like, I'm scared of who I'm going to become. I'm scared of myself. I was literally afraid of myself, because I didn't know what grief felt like until I went through it. So even being scared and wondering about who you are going to end up becoming, or what your life's going to be like, all this fear and worry, it's so natural. Like, I was fearing who I was going to become as a person, because grief changes you. You're not the same person again, but you continue living your life, but you're a very different person after that. But it's just that fear. If anybody's feeling the fear of who am I now and who am I going to become, I went through it, I feel it, and I understand it. I just wanted to put that in there.
Yeah, no, you're right. And Shalina, we've had so many conversations about that. We've had so many messages going backwards and forwards about these things. When we were feeling like that. And remember what I mentioned, it's completely normal. It's absolutely normal. We will go through excruciating pain and a barrage of emotions, which is, it's a huge roller coaster. So from shock to disbelief, like, a lot of times there'll be a shock and disbelief mostly, right? A profound sadness, that's another symptom. A profound sadness, that sadness we've never ever felt, like you'd never felt before as well, before this experience, because you hadn't experienced it before. So this massive sadness, where you have the feelings of emptiness, like despair, yearning, or really deep loneliness, and you might feel emotionally unstable. So that's another massive symptom, big symptom for grief. Guilt is another one, which is a big one, because we may often feel guilty of not doing something, or having to do something in some way or the other, or what we didn't say before they left us, or what we did do or didn't talk to them or did say. So there's a lot of those factors. People feel, sometimes they end up feeling guilty for a long time, and they are literally in denial, in that guilt, that sometimes they take the blame on themselves. So that's a huge symptom of grief, but that really needs to be resolved, because sometimes people don't end up forgiving themselves, and they keep living in guilt for the rest of their lives, which is a very heavy burden to carry for a long time.
With guilt, also, for some people, they go through survivor guilt. They feel guilty that person was taken away, but they weren't. And that's called survivor guilt. Like, why didn't I get taken away? How come they got taken away? And you feel guilty, and you live with that as well. And that's another common symptom of grief. And so is feelings of just feeling numb, like emotionally numb, and not crying. Some people don't cry. They cry later. And you might think you're crazy for not crying. How come I'm not crying? Somebody just died. But that's very normal, not to cry straight away. But some people don't cry for years, months, years, weeks. They don't cry. And that's a very normal thing to go through, as well as with guilt, also forgiveness. You know, somebody's done you wrong while they were alive and they've passed, and you forgive everything that they've done. You suddenly turn spiritual, or more towards your faith, and feelings of forgiveness come upon you, and you realize that it's probably more easier to forgive now, and then you feel crap for not forgiving when they were alive. So those are other things that people go through during grief, because it's such a personal experience.
Absolutely. Anger. I think anger is one of the key symptoms as well. Even if the loss was nobody's fault, you may just feel angry and resentful on God, on yourself, or somebody else, and whoever you believe in. If you've lost a loved one, you may be angry with yourself, the doctors, or even the person who died for abandoning you, like even that person. So you may feel the need to blame somebody for the injustice that is been done to you. So you try and blame somebody, but you're in this quite a bit of anger. We start gathering and suppressing that anger.
Absolutely.
That's a big one as well. We get angry at everything, and we get angry at people because why did this happen to me? Why did this injustice happen to me? And fairly so. That is true. I mean, because we are supposed to. Why did you take away this thing from me?
Absolutely. Or you blame yourself for your own thoughts. Like, you know, if you knew the person was unwell and you knew they didn't have time left, but you think, oh, is it my thoughts that caused their death? Is it because of me? Is it me is it my thought that caused this to happen? I know that I felt like that as well. Like, because I knew my grandma was getting elderly. So I'm thinking, did I do this? Was it my thought that did this? Which is a very irrational thing to think about when I look back. But at that time, that's how I felt.
Yeah, in grief, like I said, nothing makes sense at that time. Nothing really makes sense. It's just not, your prefrontal cortex is just not working. Nothing is logical. It doesn't make sense. It's all just run heavily with emotions. And guilt is a huge, huge part. So what you're just saying is all part of guilt. That I could have done something, or maybe I caused this, and because of me this has happened, or because of this person this has happened. It's huge, which plays along with grief. And a lot of people move on with a lot of things, but they don't move on with guilt. So the thing we need to work on really is guilt, is putting themselves guilty for what happened. And that generally continues for a long, long time, and they don't generally move on from that, or recover from that, or figure out how to heal that. Fear is a significant trigger as well, because it triggers a lot of host of fears and worries. How am I going to live? What's going to happen to me now? How am I going to survive? We start feeling anxious, helpless, insecure. People start to have panic attacks as well. The death of a loved one can trigger fears about your own mortality, of how you're going to face life without that person. You know, all the responsibilities now you have to face alone. Suppose if they've lost their partner, and they've done everything together, right? So it's literally the fear of, how am I going to face this life alone? How am I going to survive alone. I've never done this alone myself. Or if they've lost their parents, how am I going to live this life without them? Because I only know the life with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Fear of your own thoughts as well.
Yeah. So it's massive. It brings the barrage of, there's just a lot of things which work around grief, but also physical symptoms. These are emotional symptoms, but there's also physical symptoms like fatigue. People feel very, very tired. There's nausea. There's lowered immunity. Immunity gets very, very low. There's weight loss or weight gain. We stop eating or we eat a lot. It just depends. There's aches and pains. There's insomnia. There's a lot of physical effects as well with grief.
I know that with insomnia, I was afraid to go to sleep. I was actually afraid because I was scared of what I was going to dream about. I was scared of what I was going to visualize when I was asleep. And I was scared of waking up in the middle of the night and having visions and having thoughts because I wasn't ready to face what had happened. So, being afraid to go to sleep because you're afraid of your dreams or afraid of how you're going to react to seeing this person in your dreams, that's a very normal thing, as I've come to realize as well, because I remember I was texting people being like, I'm afraid to sleep. I'm scared of what I'm going to think about and dream about. I'm scared of waking up. I was scared of the nighttime. I was okay during the day, but I was scared of the nighttime because the nighttime I felt like was more literally dark and scary for me. So those were just some things that I felt during my grief process, which I'm sure other people could probably relate to or understand. So if you're afraid to sleep or you're afraid of the dark or afraid of being alone during this process, that's actually very normal. There's nothing abnormal about how you feel. That everything you feel is valid. I think that's pretty much what we're trying to say in this episode, is that everything you feel, whatever it is real, it is normal, it is valid. And
Absolutely.
I don't feel alone.
Absolutely, 100%. Everything that you feel is 100% valid, and however you feel it and for however long you feel it is also valid. Yeah. So we are just here to validate your pain as well at the same time. Yes. We have time on. We might go through some myths. There are, I know we're probably not going to have so much time. We might have to do another one, but there are myths around with grief, right? How people should grieve, how it should be processed, and how long should it take, and what's important right now, and all of that. So there are a lot of myths around that, but if we get time, we'll go through it later. But I would like to go through it next time, maybe then.
Yeah, absolutely. So have we gone through the actual stages of grief yet? We briefly touched on it.
Yeah.
But before we talk about the stages of grief, I just want you guys to know that everybody has different stages. Like, not has different stages, but everybody goes through the stages of grief differently. But this is a umbrella way of explaining the different stages of grief, but everybody experiences it maybe differently to each other. So
yeah, that is true. So if I start with stages of grief, now in 1969, there was a psychiatrist, really, really famous psychiatrist called Elizabeth Kubler-Ross.
Yeah.
She introduced what became now really the common phenomena around grief, and it's called 5 stages of grief. So they were basically based on the studies for patients who were facing terminal illness. So it was not about people who've passed away. She was basically working with people and testing them who were going through facing terminal health issues. So people generalized them other types of negative life changes and losses with it, but like mostly death. But now this has become like literally an umbrella approach around grief, the 5 stages. So like Shalina mentioned, there's no that you have to go through number 1, number 2, number 3, because in emotions, nothing happens neatly and nothing happens in a structured way. It's all emotional stuff. Nothing is in structure. It's messy. It's always messy. Emotions are messy. So And so don't have to think that, oh, I have to go through denial and then anger and then bargaining. It's just not like that. You can have anger first, you can have denial, you can have all of them at the same time, you can have three of them at the same time. It's just, it's all over the show because it's messy. But here are the 5 stages. So you know that this is part of grieving process. So number 1 is denial. Denial is literally, this can't be happening to me. And I really feel that whenever I've experienced grief, like that's literally the first thing which happens. This can't be happening to me. This cannot happen to me. This is not true. So denying the thing, denying the loss. Now, number 2 is anger. Why is this happening to me? And who's there to blame? So the blame is to doctors or people or God or myself. And the guilt come kind of in between that process as well in anger, because who's guilty? Like, I am guilty. I shouldn't have done that. I should have protected more. I should have done more. I should have said more. I should have written more. I should have, just done more. So that anger and guilt kind of plays along together, but it's usually about so much anger about who's to blame and why is this happening to me. And then comes bargaining. Now, the bargaining is, make this not happen, and in return, I will do this. So make this go away, and I'll do this. Make that go away, and I'll do this. So a lot of people do that sometimes. So we try and bargain with the loss.
And that comes with, that comes with self-blame as well. Like, if I had done this, then this wouldn't have happened as well with the bargaining.
Yeah, we do that. But it also with bargaining is like, sometimes when this is not a loss of a loved one, when this is a loss of a job, a loss of a house, or loss of some finances, then I will stop doing this so I can get this. So we always try and bargain so I can get back my own life. So if I stop this, if I do this, I will get this. We try and bargain that a lot. And then comes depression. I am too sad to do anything. And when I say depression, I don't literally mean that it's depression, the mental health condition. It's not really depression, but it's a stage. It's a stage when there's profound sadness, and I'm just sad. I don't want to do anything.
Yeah,
that's another stage. And then the 5th stage, and again, it's not in a number order, but I'll call it the 5th stage, is acceptance. That we haven't healed, or nothing can actually make sense in terms of the loss will never be fulfilled in that way, but I'm at peace with what happened.
Yeah, and this is the stage that a lot of people don't get to, or they don't get to the stage of acceptance because they're still in the stages before that. I think sometimes, hey, even I'm going through the grief right now, and I can't say that I've accepted it, you almost feel like you're in a dream. I think that's, the grieving process, you actually feel like this whole thing is a dream, and that at some point you're going to wake up. And unfortunately, it's not like that, but it feels like a dream for sure. Exactly.
So it's denial, anger, bargaining all at the same time. It literally is, and that's what happens. But Shalina, there's it comes with time, though. It's what you felt like 2 weeks ago is very different to what you feel like right now, maybe. Or what you will feel like 2 weeks later, it's going to be different from what you feel like right now.
Yeah.
It changes a lot as well.
Yeah.
Right? As you must have seen in the past few weeks that since you're going through this.
It's not as intense as it was the first day, then the second, then the third. The intensity is not there. And then it sort of goes from intense to, it just sits there at the back of your mind. And it's just constantly there, because then you start to replay thoughts and memories, and you start to replay a lot of things in your mind. And I think that's the hardest part to live with, is to keep remembering and thinking of that person, because that's all you've got now.
Yeah.
You don't have anything else. And I think that's why the acceptance part, number 5, is always feels like it's probably impossible to accept that somebody has gone. That's not a And so if anybody's struggling with acceptance, you don't have to accept it. And that's a natural process. At some point, naturally, you might come to accept it, but it's not something you can force on yourself to, I have to accept it. I have to move on. I have to get over it and let go. That's not how grief works.
Yeah, no, I don't think any of these stages or any of these symptoms they have to be forced. And they cannot be forced. I mean, we can force it as much as we like in our conscious mind. But this is all subconscious. This is all subconscious. And we can't force the subconscious. We can't literally fake the subconscious. So we can fake it all we like in the conscious mind. And for the right reasons, because you want to be able to move on. You don't want to be in pain. And I get it. Like, I really, really do get it. That we don't want to go through this, and it's true. But the more we feel, the more you feel, I would suggest, the more you heal and the more you process the grief. And if we keep on burying it down and we keep on ignoring it, or putting a band-aid on with something, with just distractions, it's just going to get suppressed and then bubble up, and it's just very hard to actually process the grief then.
That leads to the next thing, which is tips on healing. Now, this is not, people aren't going to automatically just heal from grief, but I guess we want to give you tips on, what you can do, whatever stage you're in at the moment of grief. How can you heal? So, I think number one would be, don't be afraid to ask for help. Because there's no shame, if that involves having to go to a grief counselor or turning to your faith, turning to your friends. This is a time when you see who your true friends are as well. So not being afraid to ask for help is, number one. It's paramount, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So think of this process, maybe not in stages, because the 5 stages, but not in stages, and think of it as a roller coaster full of ups and downs, highs and lows. Like many roller coasters, the ride tends to be rougher in the beginning, and lows may be deeper and longer. But as the difficult period seems to get less intense and shorter, they do get less intense, like Shalina, you just mentioned. They do get less intense and they get shorter as times go by. But it takes work, it takes time to go through a loss. So even after years of loss, sometimes, especially in special events like a family wedding or an anniversary or birth or travels, you will experience some strong sense of grief because you missed them at that time. It's just those milestones, right? So think of it as a roller coaster, and think of it as it's going to be intense emotions in the beginning, and then it's going to maybe like this later on, and then how you move across that process. So how to deal with grief? Literally, first of all, I need to give like five to six quick points, and then we give also points in terms of the tips, what you can do. But the process, what I feel personally and what I've read with research-based scenarios is, first of all, is acknowledge your pain.
Yes.
Literally acknowledge it, that you are in pain. You don't have to be strong. You don't have to put a brave front in front of anyone. You acknowledge your pain. You are going through pain. You are a human being, right? So accept that. Second part is accept that grief can trigger many different and unexpected emotions. The emotions you may not even experienced earlier. Emotions you don't know exist. So that can just bring a lot of things for you, literally. And understand, number 3, understand that your grieving process is unique to you. It's not like anybody else. So do not compare, like we mentioned earlier. But it's completely unique, like you are unique on this planet. The grieving process is as unique as you. Number 4, seek out, like you just mentioned, face-to-face support from people who care about you, face-to-face. I mean, I know in this lockdown we can't sometimes get that, which is really a pain, a huge pain. So
seek out support as much as you can, via all these means of technology, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then number 5, support yourself emotionally by taking care of yourself physically. So
Yeah.
I don't know if you've noticed, if you're physically not well, you can't take care of yourself emotionally very well either.
That's
And if
right.
you're emotionally not doing well, you don't take care of yourself physically very well either. So they both work hand in hand. So support yourself emotionally by taking care of yourself physically. Because if you at least physically walking or exercising or trying to do a little bit, it will just help you emotionally as well.
Yes,
And reckon
absolutely.
that's the 5 points, like in terms of the process, how you can apply this in your life in terms of the process.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
what are the tips? What can we do ourselves to move through grief? Shalina, you mentioned that turn to your friends and family members, and that is absolutely needed. That is a must. That is probably number one. Number
Yes,
one for sure. And for me, I
absolutely.
think, yeah. And for me personally, I think number one is literally, and I say that for every healing modality that I work with and every client that I work with, allow yourself to feel.
Yes.
Literally allow yourself to feel. As I mentioned earlier, grief often brings a wave of emotions in varying intensities, varying intensities. It's very important through this process that you allow yourself to feel what you need to feel.
Yeah.
When a painful emotion arises, it is almost our instinct to resist it because we don't want to go through pain.
No.
But this is actually counterintuitive to healing and to
Yes.
process your grief. Instead, you embrace these painful emotions and lean into them. They
Yes.
are far more easier to overcome them. I really mean it. And I know I might sound like a crazy person right now, and people might be thinking that what is she talking about? We need to get away from these painful emotions.
You
What,
have to feel
what's
it.
wrong with
Through it.
you? What's wrong with you? You're supposed to help us get away from pain, not go to pain.
Wasn't that pain? But you have to,
But
there's
that's the way. That's the only way to heal. That really is the only. If I have to talk about the crux of healing, that is the only way to heal. We have to go delve deeper into that pain, and we have to accept it. Literally, make love to it, and then it is far more easier to overcome it, because once we accepted those emotions, they're suppressed emotions. Once we start to accept them and love them, and that's when they start to go away. So when you resist, basically, you need to see that's the time you need to persist. Basically, that is the time when you need to persist, which means it's far better to give yourself permission to feel the emotions wholeheartedly rather than push them away. Like literally, when you allow the emotion wash over you, like imagine you're sad, you allow it like to completely wash over you, you give yourself permission to feel. It's amazing how quickly then it just dissipates. It just
yeah,
does. So try
and
it out. Like it really does.
it does. And there's a saying, you grow through what you go through. And this is one of those things with grief, is that even though you feel like you're in pain and you feel like you're crumbling, in some ways you're actually growing. You're growing maybe physically, not physically, spiritually. You even might be growing physically because you're taking up more time to do exercise or doing things to make yourself feel better. So this is a phase where you are actually growing. And sometimes it probably seems crazy or impossible, but it's actually true. But another thing I would say, which helped me because I'm a creative person by nature, is to turn to creativity. Um, I started writing poetry, and I started writing songs and poetry and things like that. And it was just a way to release the pain, because it's out of my mind and it's onto paper. And it's a thought that is not there, and I can get to the next thought. So releasing how you feel through art, through photography, through music, through writing, anything you feel, that's a way. Me going live right now is another way that I'm healing, because I'm talking about it, because I'm a big person who loves talking. I'm big on talking. So that's another way that you can actually heal, or, to talk to people, or to host a big Zoom meeting and talk about it with other people. Empowering other people can actually make you feel better too. And I think that was one of the reasons why I wanted to do this session tonight. But remember, I was chatting to you and telling you that part of me was afraid, and I was afraid of how I was going to be when I came live. But suddenly I just feel like this is more empowering than anything, and that's helping me, believe it or not. So that's another way that you can heal, as well as turning to your faith. I think death and faith are very much on the same page. You know, everybody turns to faith, especially at the time of death. So turning to your faith will also, you know, somehow lighten the burden, ease the burden as well.
Absolutely. Except also when you go to people, I think I've seen that myself. Even sometimes myself, I actually don't know what to say. And especially in the past, like 4 or 5 years ago, if I had to meet somebody, I just wouldn't know what to say and how to comfort them. So I would suggest, if people are coming to you, accept that many people feel awkward when trying to comfort someone who's grieving, because the problem is it's very confusing. It is very, very confusing, and sometimes it's frightening. It's a frightening emotion for many people, especially if they haven't experienced grief or a similar loss themselves. They may feel unsure how to comfort you, and they end up saying or doing something wrong which you might not like. But don't use that as an excuse to retreat into your shell and avoid social contact, I would say that. Because if a friend or loved one reaches out to you, it's because they care. But they don't always necessarily know the right thing to say. And none of us actually do have the right thing to say, because everyone's awkward. It's very, very confusing how to comfort someone, how to help someone, especially during this process, because it's kind of like very confusing for everyone. So just accept it. And, you know, if somebody reaches out to you, like literally because they care, and whatever they're doing, it's because out of care and out of concern, they're going to do that.
Before you mentioned, you know, planning ahead for triggers, you were talking about how, you know, sometimes the memories, and you're going to feel worse around, you know, the times of birthdays or anniversaries. So planning ahead for triggers, you know, if you know a anniversary or a birthday or a death, whatever type of event is coming up, if you plan ahead for it in advance, plan what you're going to do on the day, or plan to have people with you on the day, it can also help, you know, like if your birthday's coming up and it's the first year without a relative, then planning that you might, you know, have a candle vigil, or you might have some friends and family over, or you might do a Zoom party if you're locked down in quarantine or whatever. If you plan ahead, then on the day I'm not saying the feelings won't be there, but it may not feel as intense, I guess, when the day comes.
Yeah, that's right. I had that one as well. It's because it's a huge trigger.
You
know, these milestones are a huge trigger for loss. And I think, what was I going to say? I was going to say...
Sorry, I totally cut you off there.
No, that's okay. Oh, yeah. Forgiveness. I was going to say about forgiveness. Forgiveness is huge with grief. Like I mentioned, guilt is huge because it comes as a massive symptom, and guilt goes along for a long, long time with you, because sometimes we just feel guilty of what happened, and we try to blame ourselves or blame others. So finding forgiveness is probably one of the biggest healing exercises we can do to process grief. So because loss is usually associated with feelings of guilt on some level. There's always guilt. Guilt, whether we try and accept it or not, but there's always there on some level or the other. So this guilt can come from both sides, from all angles of the situation. So in order to release these feelings, it's important to practice forgiveness. Forgive yourself, forgive others, forgive the situation. By doing so, it can help you feel at peace with your life and the recent loss that has occurred. Now, I know that forgiveness is not easy, and I totally get it, and I totally respect that. But try and see if you can find it in you to forgive yourself. Because look at it, if you have to look at it practically, hey, what can happen now? The person's gone, right? You have to if you keep suppressing that anger and guilt in you, what's the worst that's going to happen, and what's the best you're going to get out of that? The best is nothing. You're probably going to just, get deteriorated in terms of your health, mental health, physical health, and all of that. And I don't know if there's any good outcome which can come out of it. So the earlier the better we can let ourselves release of this anger and blame on ourselves or others. Forgiveness is probably the best exercise. There's lots of techniques to forgive, but we can probably go through it at some other point in the interest of time. I would go through a ritual of forgiveness. And when you can actually find that courage in you to really forgive, it's not about just saying it that I forgive you. It's literally really feeling it and having that courage to forgive subconsciously. Yeah. And I had the last one. Sorry, Shalina.
No.
Sorry, did you want to say something before?
Oh, no. I just had like one or two more tips, but you go. And I'll do it.
I'll just say this one, and then you can say your ones. Rituals and customs, I feel, is very important, and it helps us process these emotions quite a bit. So rituals basically help us come to terms with loss. They're a way to honor and respect our lost loved ones. Rituals are very important in some cultures, and a lot of cultures have their own rituals and that's a part of the grieving process. Like, for example, funerals are it's a ritual. That's the way we say goodbye, and we acknowledge the loss, or we celebrate the life of the deceased. Where cremations, and from a psychological point of view, these rituals are there with a meaning, and they fulfill two important things. They help us make sense of what has happened, and they confront the reality of the loss. So the rituals actually make us understand. So we sometimes come to terms with the reality with these rituals, and we confront that reality. So, and you can make your own rituals. You can celebrate the life of the loved one however you want. Like Lena just said, that she's into creative work, right? So she draws, paints, and that is the most beautiful way to express. You journal. You can celebrate. You can make photo album with beautiful memories. So you can do a lot of creative things like that and make them ritualistic. Like, light a candle every day for them, or do prayers for them every day, or light an incense for them. These kind of rituals, they give you peace, but they also help you accept very slowly accept that loss. The more rituals you perform, the more you write about them, or the more you say about them, or more you think about them, or more you maybe have thoughts for them, or anything. Literally, you make your own rituals. You don't have to follow anything out there culturally. You make your own ritual.
Yeah. No, I love that. I was just gonna say that taking care of your physical health is a really big one, and grieving is exhausting. It is so exhausting when you are going through grief. So it is so important to eat a healthy diet, to exercise, to sleep, to keep a continuous pattern. Whatever you're doing when that person was alive, you still do things the same way or a little bit modified afterwards. But if you completely change your patterns, that is going down a destructive mode. But if you keep up with your health, your diet, your fitness, I guess it gives you something positive to do while you're feeling so negative. And also, relaxation or gentle exercises can also help. Mindfulness, meditation, as you were saying, with rituals, meditation, or meditating for the person, depending on whatever your belief system is. Even just doing things you enjoy, even if you feel like you don't enjoy them right now, things that you used to do that brought you happiness, you can start to go back to doing that, whatever it was. If it was a TV show you used to watch, if it was writing, whatever it was. Sometimes when you're grieving, you lose interest in things that you love, but you can slowly start to do those things once again, or find new interests, or and my final one is join a support group. There are support groups on Facebook. There are support groups everywhere. You're not alone. The biggest thing is not being alone and not being ashamed and afraid to reach out for help, because just on Facebook itself, there are so many support groups, and, just being surrounded by people who understand your pain is so comforting in a way, because you don't have to worry about what they're going to say. You don't have to worry about what to say. It's just that level of comfort. So, joining a support group would maybe, help you in your journey of healing through grief, I think.
Yep. No, absolutely. I love that. That is true. I had that one as well, for sure. The support group. It's really important. One thing I was really thinking I wanted to mention, which I didn't mention before, is don't let anyone tell you how to feel.
Yeah.
And don't tell yourself how to feel either.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned before, your grief is your own, and no one else can tell you when it's time to move on, when it's time to get over it, when it's time to be strong, when it's time to be not to be strong. So let yourself feel whatever you want to feel without embarrassment or judgment. I think that's really important, because I feel that happens a lot, that I have to really put a brave front in front of these people or in front of others for this reason or other reason. What will they say? And I should have been over it. I should have moved on. And one day I'm laughing and next day I'm crying. So they'll be like, one day we thought you've gotten over it because you were laughing the other day and now you're crying. So because it's a huge roller coaster, dude. It's grief. Like, it comes in many forms, and you don't have to tell me how do I feel, because this is how I feel. So it's okay to be angry. It's okay to yell at the heavens. It's okay to cry. It's okay not to cry. It's okay to laugh.
If you think of something funny that happened that they did, it's okay to laugh as well.
Yeah, and it's okay to laugh generally. Like, it's not that if you're grieving, you cannot laugh, because there's no rule around that. So you always, it comes in bursts. It's not always there. It comes in bursts generally. So it's okay to laugh. It's okay to find moments of joy. It's okay to let go when you're ready. Also, it's okay to move on. You don't have to specifically hold on to it because it's only been a few months. I can't move on already, or it's been a year. I can't move on already. So there's these kind of things. Just don't let anyone tell you how to feel and how to move on and how to not move on and things like that. And for you as well, don't put any standards for yourself, I guess, for your grief and how you process this literally. And yeah, that's what I feel. And you've mentioned obviously all the other ones. And another thing I wanted to mention, if you find it really, really difficult and it's been a long time, then it's time to talk to a therapist or a grief counselor. And if it feels too much, you literally just find grief counseling, and they can help you overcome these obstacles. It's just more important now to take care of yourself. It really is, your mental health and your physical health at the same time, because the stress of a major loss can quickly deplete your energy and emotional reserves. So looking after your physical and emotional needs will be your top main priority in this difficult time, because it can really put you down very quickly.
Yeah. And, grief doesn't discriminate against anyone. I remember I was messaging people saying, oh my God, I work as a counselor, I help people, and right now I feel like I can't help myself. And, and because at one point I felt like, well, I'm supposed to be strong all the time because that's what I do. I help other people. I talk about all these issues. I counsel people. But the thing is, counselors see counselors. Psychologists go and see other psychologists. Your therapist has a therapist. Your psychologist has a psychologist that they see. We all get help. Even if we're in the mental health profession, we still need help ourselves as well sometimes. And I just wanted to put it out there that even if we are in the profession where we are helping people all the time, people come to us for whatever type of counseling they need. There are times that we need that too. That doesn't mean that we are incompetent in our jobs, but it just means that we're human and we also need help. Now, I wanted to touch on one more thing, which is what to and what not to say. And as you mentioned before, it is so awkward for some people who haven't dealt with somebody who's gone through grief and they don't know what to say. And I completely understand not knowing what to say. So I just wanted to touch on things that people did say when my grandmother passed a few weeks ago, and things that people said, and I was like, I don't think you should be saying that. So, you know, if you don't know what to say, you know, the simplest thing is, I'm so sorry for your loss. I'm so sorry. My deepest condolences, my sympathies, whatever, you know. And if you don't know what to say, sometimes just saying that actually lightens the load. You know, hey, I wish I had the right words. I wish I knew what to say. I actually don't know what to say right now. I'm sorry. Just know that I love you. I care for you. You can just say something like that. You don't always have to say, you know, oh, I'm so sorry for your loss. Like, there's different ways to express how you feel. Or, you know, you and your loved ones are in my prayers. That's another thing that you can say. But if you don't know what to say, you can ask what needs to be done. Do you need this? Do you need that? And when you ask a question, you ask what needs to be done, do it. Don't just talk for the sake of talking. Some people, they'll say, I'm here for you, but really they're not. And I think that grief is one of those times where it is a testament of the person's character when they say that they will be there for you. It is a test of your friendship. Who's actually there for you? Who actually gives a damn? Because so many times people talk, but there's no action. So, you know, you can offer to go to the funeral. You can say, I'm one phone call away, and mean it when you say it. If you say you're one phone call away, then be one phone call away, you know. Tell them that how they feel is real and valid. You know, validate that person's emotions. I know that when I was going through it, when I was talking to people, as soon as somebody said to me, yes, this is real, this is normal, it's completely normal to feel how you're feeling, it automatically lifted the load off me, because I was like, yes, somebody has just validated how I felt. You know, you can tell them that there's no right or wrong way to grieve, which is what you told me that as well. When I was talking to you, you were like, there's no right or wrong way to grieve. How you feel is how you feel. And we just hug them and be present. But with what not to say, had a lot of phone calls coming through, and the general consensus was, be strong. I kept hearing that. You have to be strong. Be strong. You have to be strong. You don't have a choice. Have to be strong. I get the underlying message of be strong, but can I just remind you, people, if you're about to tell somebody who's grieving to be strong, please keep in mind that at a time when somebody is grieving, it is not possible for someone who is grieving, who is going through such intense emotions and pain, to be strong. You know, or people say things like, don't cry, be strong for your family, you have to be positive. I was perplexed when people were saying that. I understand what they were trying to say, but it almost sounded very insensitive. You know, it's overriding a person's emotions when they're going through grief. It's almost like you're telling them, stop feeling upset, because now you need to go and assist other people. You have to help yourself now. You have to go and help your other family members who are grieving. It's almost like putting a stop to how they feel. And, you know, the tears, the emotions, these things can't wait. The feeling of grief can't wait. You can't stop yourself from feeling grief and suddenly just become strong now, just because somebody told you to, you know, and they can't stop at a time when a person has passed. Yeah. You know, you're feeling anger, denial, sadness, and shock. And it's such a confusing time for people who are going through grief, because your world and your life has just changed within a second. And the word strong doesn't even make sense at that point in time. So what I'm trying to say is, please be careful to your words to somebody who has just lost someone, because sometimes your words, you may intend for them to be comforting, but they're actually quite insensitive. So telling somebody to be strong and not to cry and to be strong for their family and to be positive, that's not comforting, to be honest. It's not. It's insensitive to a person and what they're going through. And that's what I felt. And I didn't want to pick up phone calls because I kept hearing the be strong thing. I was like, no, I almost felt like being sarcastic. Thank you for telling me to be strong. I couldn't have thought of that myself. I'm just going to go and be strong now.
I know. I really wanted to stress this as well, because I've got it in the myth. This is the one thing which we hear a lot, and I'm not trying to criticize anyone who says that, to be honest, because all of them, like I was a few years ago, would say the same thing, because I don't know any other way to say at that time, right? So they mean well, they wish well, they care, and they really are feeling for you. But that's what they've heard, that's what they've conditioned to say, that's what they've seen people saying. So it's just a thing to say that we should say this because they have to be strong at that time, but they don't realize a lot of the times that feeling sad or invalidating their emotions is actually not probably the best thing to do for that person right now. We need to validate their emotions, and it's really a myth. It really is a myth that it's important. We think it's important to be strong in the face of loss. That really is a myth. Feeling sad, frightened, lonely, angry is just a normal reaction to loss. But at that time, if you want to feel strong, why should you want to feel strong at that time? Because you're grieving, right? You can express your emotions. You are going to express your emotions, and crying doesn't mean that you're weak. So people say, stop crying and be strong, stop crying and be strong. But crying doesn't mean that you're weak. You don't need to protect your family or friends or put a brave front, like I said before as well. Showing your true feelings can help them, can help you. So be authentic and be okay with your feelings. Like I mentioned before as well, we need to feel to heal. We really need to feel to heal. So if you're being stronger, that means you're suppressing it. That means you're numbing your pain with something. That means you're ignoring it with distractions and you're suppressing it. And suppression is much worse than actually feeling it and healing it at that time. Because suppression will stay forever in your body, forever in your being. And it will actually cause a lot more problems later on than what is this pain is going to cause momentarily. And we have to just validate their emotions. We have to validate our own emotions. If somebody says that, and I don't actually feel bad, because that's what they know. That's what I knew a few years ago. That's all they knew to say. And they are saying in the right frame of mind, and they actually feel for you. They actually care for you when they say that. But they feel that the only strong. It's important to be strong right now, and I just want to put it out there that it's not important to be strong right now.
No, that's the thing.
Yeah, it's just feel your feelings, and crying and no crying doesn't matter. Some people think that if you don't cry, it means you're not sorry about the loss. I mean, it's got nothing to do with crying. Some people don't cry at all, and some people cry all the time, and some people cry sometimes and then they stop crying. So it's got nothing to do if they're sorry about the loss or not. Ignoring the pain, people will say, just get busy with something, yes, it's important to get back into routine. It's important to get back into your hobbies or interests, what gives you joy. And even a routine is comforting. Yes, that's important. But if you ignore it and just fill yourself up with distractions and just busyness, you're just making it worse in the long run. So it's necessary to feel the grief, to face it, and actively deal with it. And I think we've said enough about being strong, so I won't go on about that.
Yes. In other words, you don't have to be strong.
You don't have to be strong. Really,
no, absolutely not. Keeping it together doesn't show that you are strong, and crying does not make you weak. Whatever gender you are, this is not about gender. You feel how you feel. Expressing your emotions and being vulnerable is a sign of strength. But to suppress it and be scared of your own emotions, that is the sign of weakness. That is the sign that something's wrong somewhere. So, wow, it has been an hour. I guess this is a topic that we can go on and on. I think we can do another episode on grief sometime soon. Maybe, grief and something else, like a different aspect of grief. But hopefully this has helped anybody who is watching, just validating your pain, giving you some sort of tips, or at least validation. Just please know that you are not alone. That's really what I want you to know, is that you are not alone. I'm currently grieving right now. My grandmother only passed away like 2.5 weeks ago. So I'm currently grieving. I know the pain. And if you want to talk, please reach out to me. Reach out to Kara, reach out to myself. If you want to have a chat about it, however you're feeling is real, it is valid, and there is no shame in it. So please don't be ashamed of how you feel, because you're only human. You feel what you feel, There's no right or wrong way to grieve, as I am coming to learn with my interesting grieving process. So
it's always interesting. Remember, it's unique to you.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah. So however long it lasts, it will be what it is.
Yes, it is what it is. Yeah. So I think we've said what we set out to say tonight. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we can probably do something else later on, but I think it's good. It's good for now, and we probably try to help a little bit, or like you said, even if it's helped you validate your emotions or validate what you're feeling, or at least what are the myths out there, like how you're supposed to feel and how you're not supposed to feel. Hopefully we've uncovered that, and help with some rituals and processes where you can find forgiveness, or you can, know some things to do and help yourself. Yeah. That is amazing. Literally, I would say go out to creative outlets, go back to your hobbies, go back to your interests, what gives you joy and what gives you comfort. Comfort is very important right now. So what gives you comfort? Go back to that comforting thing, that comforting movie, or, that
TV show,
that food, or whatever's comforting right now, and comforting routine would help really right now.
Look after yourself. You don't have to focus on external factors. You matter. Your grief matters. So thank you so much for joining me tonight to talk about such a heavy topic. I don't think that I could have sat here and talked about it myself, because it's still so raw for me right now. But hopefully anybody watching has gotten something out of it. So we will see you.
We will come back another time with something else.
Next episode. Thank you so much, Kara, for joining us. Is there anything else you wanted to add before we end the live stream?
No, I'd just like to say thank you very much for being here, literally. And if it's helped you in any way, that's great. And reach out to us if you just need to talk, if you just need to somebody to listen and somebody to validate you. That's perfectly all right. That really is. We're there to support. We really are. And just look after your health, your physical and your mental health. It's the key. It's the most important thing. Even if you have kids, it's going to help you. It's going to help them. It's going to help the family. Because I know a lot of them might just say that I have kids. I have to put, I have to put up a brave face or a brave front in front of them and all of that. You're okay to still show your emotions in front of kids, because you need to model that behavior so they can show emotions later on in their life. So so that's important as well. Reach out to us if you need any help, but we will come back with another topic or something around this as well if needed. Please let us know.
If there's anything you want us to talk about. Oh, are you about to say that?
No, I was just gonna say we just need some help. Let us know if you want us to talk about something. Let us know if you want us to talk about a topic or a particular thing around personal development, around career, around health, around well-being, around healing, around trauma, around pain, or anything you'd like to discuss, confidence you'd like us to talk about. We're more than happy to do that. We're more than happy to cover that for you. Were you going to say the same thing? I'm not sure.
I was about to say the same thing, but you took the words out of my mouth. Perfect. I love it. But anyways, guys, we will see you in the next episode. So take care. Reach out if you need help, and you're not alone. So bye for now.
Bye.